record to this computer. Great, great, great. I want to welcome everyone to episode 23, believe it or not. Episode 23 of the discussion. I want to first shout out my co-host, JeRod Lindsay. How we doing, brother?
We're doing great, Mr. Maurice Stewart. How are you, sir?
Living the dream. And we have two
Awesome.
special guests from the great Cincinnati Cares organization. Katie, I'm going to flip it to you first to tell us about yourself. And then Carol, if you want to pass it to Carol, that'd be great.
Hey, I'm Katie Fiorelli. I'm the Outreach and Training Manager at Cincinnati Cares, and I'm absolutely delighted to be sharing a little bit of my Friday with you. I've been working with Maurice pretty regularly since January, and I can't think of a better friendship I've been able to build in the pandemic.
Oh, well, thank you, Katie. Carol.
Hi, I'm Carol Roundtree. I'm Chief Volunteer Officer for Cincinnati Cares, which basically means anything that touches volunteer engagement I'm a part of, from managing our own volunteer and intern program to helping nonprofits learn how to do it themselves to helping do our events where we connect board members to boards.
Sweet, sweet, sweet. All right. Thank you, ladies. Now I'm going to pass it off to JeRod.
Awesome. Well, first and foremost, thank you both for joining us on a Friday night. Carol, again, thank you for joining us last minute. I want to start with, what is Cincinnati Cares? What do you all do?
So Cincinnati Cares is a guide for the community. We like to say we help the helpers. Mm-hmm. So if you're a nonprofit and you're looking for volunteers, you're going to post that on the profile that we've created for you on our guide. Right now we have 700 nonprofits listed, and kind of just like a Facebook profile, we're going to say, who you are, what ways people can help. And we also make it very easy for people to reach out. So they can contact you directly through our site. They can hop on over to your website, and they can just kind of see all the different opportunities that you need. One of the most exciting things that's happened since the pandemic is we've offered ways to directly donate to nonprofits. So if you see something, a mission, a cause that you're really excited about, you can make a direct donation through our site, and it's fee-free. We don't take any fees from that. And we also have items needed. So if you have, you've been doing like a pandemic cleanup and you're like, what am I supposed to do with all these coats? You can go on our site, search items needed now, and actually search exactly which organizations are collecting coats right now, or non-perishable shoes, whatever you have to give. So like I said, we really are there to help the helpers, and we do that through a series of technology and programs.
That's awesome. So when we say help the helpers, it's more of a nonprofit organization. If I'm looking to join a board, or if I'm looking to help a nonprofit organization, Cincinnati Cares is where I want to be, right?
Exactly. We didn't want to kind of pigeonhole, because we help nonprofits, but we also help volunteers. We help people who want to serve on boards. There's so many different ways people want to help, and we are kind of the place for you to start when you want to help.
All right. So for you or for Carol, during this pandemic, how has it changed the way that nonprofit work has looked like, right? So typically in my mind, around this time, nonprofits would be getting together, putting together events and things of that nature. What does that look like now? How does nonprofits raise money, and how do you all help them?
Carol, do you want to take that?
Well, the pandemic has definitely had an impact on them, which is why we made some of the changes that Katie talked about. Mm-hmm. Before the pandemic, we didn't have donate or items needed. Now, the other thing we added was a way for nonprofits to even share kind of a story of their impact or an announcement. So then in real time, they could say, oh, we're having this virtual event got canceled or so forth. So now here we are 11 months in, nonprofits have figured out how to do virtual events and fundraisers, and, selling raffle tickets is pretty easy with a couple emails. So people can still participate, and they can share that on their profile on Cincinnati Cares.
So Carol, I think we spoke, it might have been maybe March or April, and we talked about how a lot of nonprofits wouldn't necessarily survive the pandemic, right? They had to pivot. And as you mentioned, right, going virtual is something that they've had to do. Do you feel like that this will continue throughout the rest of the year, or do you think some of that will change now that the vaccine has been administered for some people?
We're seeing kind of starting to see a hybrid within nonprofit events where, the people that are comfortable being in person can participate that way. The people that want to watch the program part virtually can participate that way and still buy raffle tickets and so forth. And I think we'll continue to see that easily for the next 6 months or so. It'll maybe even for the rest of the year. I actually know of an event being planned for November that is going to do that hybrid model as well. And it might become the new norm because you can include more people virtually who maybe don't have time to carve a whole night out or something like that. So it brings in a lot of interesting factors when you can do a hybrid model. So time will tell. In a year from now, we'll see if we're still seeing this hybrid event model.
Yeah, that's a great point. Go ahead, Katie.
It's the opportunity for a new audience. We're learning that some fundraisers are actually having a bigger impact because they're able to reach across the country. And so maybe you wouldn't have attended an event in, Austin, but now you can go to a virtual fundraiser in Austin. And so there are some things that we're guessing are going to continue even after pandemic times. And Maurice and I have talked about serving on a board and how it is really a time commitment, and driving to those meetings, that can add an hour, 2 hours to your evening. And so pivoting to a virtual model and having these virtual meetings really expands the access and opportunity for people to serve on boards or do virtual volunteering that they might not have had time to do in the past.
So a couple of things stand out to me when you say that, right? Serving on the board, virtual volunteering. With you being the outreach liaison and the captain, so to speak, of outreach, what does that look like for you? How has your job been impacted now?
Well, we've always offered a digital board bootcamp, so it's like an online board training. So we were kind of ready to go when the pandemic hit. We really believe it's important to make sure as many people as possible in our community know about board service, but also know what you need to do when you're actually on that board. I think the biggest pivot that we did as an organization was taking our events virtual. So we have these board connecting events that we kind of jokingly say they're like speed dating, where you kind of get to see the profile and get a little algorithm bump saying, we think you'd be good with these people. You have these quick 15-minute conversations. And we used to do that, at the Cintas Center over cocktails and little, snacks, and really had fun planning those events. And we had to pivot and take those virtual because at the end of the day, board leadership is critical in our community. Board members are the ones who are selecting and reviewing the executive director. And so you want to make sure that you have fresh ideas and fresh people coming in and adding to the board. And we didn't want the pandemic to get in the way. So we were able to use the deep technology base that we have on our team and pivot our events virtually. So we still have those speed dating, 15-minute conversations. You still get the algorithm to help you get that great match, but you don't have to, you can wear sweats. We won't know as long as you wear something nice on top.
So,
JeRod, I got a question actually. So Katie, I think this is a great segue, and hopefully you were heading this way, JeRod. But do you want to tell the audience how you and I got connected? Because I think this is a great segue into the next section.
Absolutely. So as outreach and training coordinator, I'm on Facebook, that's social media. And I saw a really interesting post that Maurice put out there. And he was talking about the gap that Cincinnati has in leadership when it comes to racial equity, that there just are not as many Black leaders as you would expect based on the population that we have in Cincinnati. And that's also reflected in board leadership. So if you look at the population we have in Cincinnati, it does skew about 30-40% Black, but board leadership is nowhere near reflective. It's closer to 10 to 12% Black. And that really is disparate, right? Like that's not, we kind of jokingly said, if we were in Washington, DC, I would expect someone with a Vietnamese background to be on a board because there's a big Vietnamese population. Just like in Cincinnati, there's a very large Black population. Therefore, in a representative fashion, you would expect a proportionate number of people of color, Black people, African Americans on a board as well. And so when Maurice raised his hand and he put this question out there, and I think he took kind of a risk saying that, bringing this question up, it was for me a great moment of connection. Because at Cincinnati Cares, we focus on something, and I have to be very careful when I say this, wider boards, not whiter boards, wider boards, which stands for welcoming, inclusive, diverse, equitable, and representative. And
say that again. You got to say that again. You got to say it again.
So, welcoming, inclusive, diverse, equitable, and representative. And so, you know, we're looking around Cincinnati and we're saying, well, it's not represent. The boards right now aren't representative of our population. They're not diverse. And we're kind of concerned about welcoming. And, you know, my background is in education. I taught in DC Public, Chicago Public, and I worked in Cincinnati Public. And, I really personally am driven by equity. And, that's incredibly important to me. And I was really grateful to work at an organization that puts that front and center. You know, when we talk about boards, we really talk about wider boards. Mm-hmm. And with that, our executive leadership had charged me to create a training because we know that so many people have such good intentions. We are not alone saying we want more diversity, but that's often kind of a question of how do you get there? And so with my teaching background and in partnership with Maurice, we've really dug into the statistics, into the literature, and looked into, who is doing welcoming well. And, it might sound silly, but why do you want a diverse board? And so we've worked together collaboratively for the past couple of months, developing this training that we're very excited to deliver. And our first audience is going to be those nonprofits attending our Board Connecting events, because we want to stand behind, when we say wider, we want to make sure if we're sending you to this nonprofit, you are going to feel welcomed. They're going to understand the value of diversity. And so by developing this training, we can feel confident sending people to these nonprofits.
Right.
So the Board Connect event that you continue to reference, I want to make sure that everyone hears this, is on March 11th, right?
Yeah.
And I want to get back to a couple of things you said. Welcoming well, I want to touch on that. I also want to touch on the website because I asked you a question earlier, so I would love to hear your response. But can you tell us a little bit about what the March 11th board event will look like? Board Connect, right? What the March 11th Board Connect event will look like and how people can find out and register for that event.
Perfect. Carol?
Sure, absolutely. So it's you register on Eventbrite. If you just do a search for Cincinnati Cares, you should find it. We just charge a little bit to get some skin in the game to make sure you show up. You then will be able to sign up for session times before the event, so you can look at the nonprofits that are signed up, read their board postings, and see which ones you're most interested in meeting with. There's 5 different sessions, and the event all will work on Zoom. And what'll happen is there'll be an opening session, and then we'll send everybody to a breakout room until their session rooms based on what you picked. So it'll be on your agenda. So you just kind of click from one Zoom meeting to the next, and you'll have 15-minute conversations with leaders of nonprofits. And typically it is the executive director and or the board chair that attend this. So you get a really great conversation. And the idea is you'll have just enough time to talk to them to know if you want to continue the conversation offline later. So the hope is that within 48 hours, either you or the nonprofit reaches out for okay, let's have a deeper call where we can really dig in and learn more.
How successful has the events been in the past?
Very successful. And what's interesting is a lot of nonprofits are so loving our events. They come to everyone, and we got feedback after the first virtual one that they thought, one of them said they liked it better than in person. It was faster. They didn't have to decorate their table and have handouts. They could see the candidates ahead of time because they sign up ahead of time. So then the nonprofit can go look and click on their profile, and hopefully their profile contains their LinkedIn page and a few other things, so they can kind of know who they're meeting with ahead of time. So yes, I mean, we know they're successful because nonprofits keep coming back.
1000%.
Or they don't come back because they filled all their spots.
Speaking of,
let me ask this real quick, Maurice. Just one. You mentioned profiles, right? So if I am interested in becoming a board member or a prospect, a candidate, what should I do to make sure that my profile looks as sexy as possible so that people will actually be interested in me as a candidate for their board?
Well, fabulous question.
We had talked about this. I would be happy to do a demo. Would you like to kind of see what a profile looks like and kind of how to build your own?
Sure. Absolutely. You look so excited, which excites me, Katie. You just You look excited. Yes, we would love it.
Okay, great.
Mo, I'm sorry about interrupting you.
No. That's perfect. No, I'm going to hand over the host to you, Katie.
All right, let me pull this up then. Share my screen. Can you guys see that?
We can.
Yes.
Okay, great. So what I would invite everyone to do, if you're interested in either attending the BoardConnect event or you just want to find a board position, and you're welcome. This is what we like. The BoardConnect event is a really easy way to break the ice. It's great. It's one evening, but we have this this platform, this place to find board positions. It's free and it's available 24 hours a day, 365. So if you're just kind of curious, this is a great place to start. So you would go to boards.cincinnaticaresorg, say that you're a candidate. You're gonna create your account, and I've already got mine.
Oh.
And the nice thing is I'm registered for our event, so I can even show you what that looks like a little bit. But what I want to do is edit my profile. So what you would be doing as someone who wants to serve on a board, as someone who wants to add their voice, claim your seat at the table, you create this profile to share who you are, your background. We kind of jokingly say this is like LinkedIn meets Tinder, but it really is, like, who are you? What do you like? What are you interested in? And then we use a really great AI-backed algorithm to make the matches for you. So here's my profile. I've got my LinkedIn account linked, my address. We just put that in for geolocation. So like, we're not matching you with a nonprofit almost in Indiana if you're all the way on the east side, and vice versa. Board training. So I've served on a board in the past, and we run board bootcamp, and I've also attended the Cincinnati Bar Association board training. So any trainings that you have, we really encourage you to put that in there. Like I said, your LinkedIn profile, where you work. And now here's kind of where it gets interesting. So you get to select your current level of interest. And I kind of mentioned this in the preview. I have 3 kids. My daughter was born in March of last year. That's when I rolled off my last board position. And guess what? I haven't picked up a new one. So if you're like gung-ho, please select actively seeking. But if you're just kind of in that curious exploratory space, put open to consider. And once you've gotten your position, change it to not actively seeking. This is, again, where we start to differentiate. So at Cincinnati Cares, we've broken down all nonprofits into 13 different causes. So we feature everything from animals all the way to supporting veterans and military families. And so say exactly, what is important to you? For me, children, education, poverty, social justice, and equality. That's what's driven my career. That's what's driven my volunteerism. And those are the causes I'm going to choose because that's where I want to spend my time helping. The average board member is expected to serve, between 8 and 12 hours a month. So, you can select everywhere from 1 to 13. I got to tell you, if you have 1 hour, it's going to be hard to serve on a board, right? Maurice, would you agree?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So, but just give a realistic explanation and about when you would like to start. We encourage everyone, really, like you said, if you want to make it nice and sexy, you're going to describe yourself and you're going to say the position specific. So like, what are the cool things about you that you can bring to this nonprofit? Like why they would want to choose you. And again, like differentiator. So here are your board interests. You might want to blend into the crowd. Maybe you're looking for a larger board, 21 plus members. For me, I thought, under 10 or between 11 and 20, that's about the average and where I'm interested. And donation expectations. This is something that we actually talk about in our board bootcamp training. Not all boards require you to make a donation. And particularly not all boards make you give a $10,000 donation. And I think a lot of times people are hesitant to join a board because they say, I'm not sure if I have the financial impact, right? So what we like to teach people is that not only is it important to just give something significant to you. For some people, that's $100. For some people, that's $10. For some people, that's $10,000, right? You get to say where you're comfortable. We require a specific amount. We strive for 100% board giving. And I love that give or get, which is this idea that we all have networks, we have family, we have friends, we have colleagues. And when you get excited about something, you are going to tell them, and they might be the way that you kind of get the money that the board is looking for. What kind of budget are you looking to manage? What kind of size are you interested in of the nonprofit? And where's the maturity? So some of you are gonna, really want to jump in on that startup, and you're gonna want to help build something from the ground up. Other people are saying, yeah, I got a lot of chaos going on right now, so I want something more established. You get to choose the age and maturity, and a couple more differentiators. So we encourage everyone to just do an honest assessment of your skills. I've seen profiles that had one skill in their area of experience, and God love you, I know everyone here has a couple skills. I've seen a profile where someone chose like 50% of the skills. And so, you have to thread the needle. Don't be overly proud. Don't be overly humble, but, give a realistic depiction of, what do you want to bring? And an interesting conversation Maurice and I had was that sometimes you have a skill, that you don't get to use every day in your job, that you're looking to flex. Make sure you highlight that there, because board service is like the perfect place to have kind of that leadership and be able to contribute that skill that maybe you don't get to do regularly through your job.
Yeah.
Any questions so far?
And for example, if I mean, right now I'm a program director, right? Let's say I have a knack for marketing. It may be an opportunity for me to, in my board service, be on the marketing committee. Get involved with helping the nonprofit develop its marketing strategy. So that's kind of what Katie was alluding to there.
Exactly. Say your education background, any board training comments you want to make about that, your demographics, and whether you've served on a board in the past. And so my past board service was at my church. I was served on the board of deacons. My last year as a 3-year term. The last year I was secretary. So I just want to let everyone know. You're going to update your profile. And since I am enrolled in the BoardConnect event, I want to show you how it actually looks, right? If that's okay.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. So we have, like Carol mentioned, we have an introduction. I kind of like to think of this like if we were in a real space, this would be the hallway, right? Like this is where all the doors are. This is how you get into each place. This is your hallway that you kind of navigate the event through, which is really nice because you're not like, finding a million different Zoom links all over the place. So to figure out exactly where you want to serve, I like to go to the auto schedule because, again, that's kind of leveraging the AI that we have in place and seeing what your results are. So these are actual nonprofits who are going to be at our event on the 11th. Nevertheless, Intercommunity Justice and Peace Center, Dress for Success, and the Academy of Cinematic Arts. Now, this is for we've got 4 right here, and I want to let you know we have 22 different nonprofits signed up. So this is just a little bit. And let's say, okay, this is an interesting name. I have no idea what Nevertheless is. The nice thing is I see I have a good match, but this goes back to the profile I was talking about. So, we're going to let you know what the mission is, what causes they adjust. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like a great fit for me. Children, education, poverty, social justice. This tells about the nonprofit. And then this is what I love. It's telling you what is required or what they're looking for in a board member. Because I think a lot of times when you're asked to serve on a board, you're like, I don't know, like, when is the meeting? What do you want from me? What are you looking for? Maurice, you're nodding your head.
Yes.
So what we've done is we've tried to remove the mystery, right? They're telling you about their board, about the position, what skills they're looking for, when they're meeting, what the time commitment is, what the donation requirements are, and again, the mission. I think this is really helpful because, as Maurice and I have talked about, if you grew up with someone in your family serving on a board, you get it. You kind of get what the obligation is. But if this is totally new, it's not like you can just kind of Google and get this information. So it's a real asset to the community to have a place where everyone can go and be on the same playing field and understand what the requirement is.
Yeah, Katie, I want to echo that. I think this is huge, actually, because, I mean, to this day, I've been serving on boards for a number of years now. And, there are people that aren't quite sure what it is that I'm doing. So what is that? Do you get paid for that? No, it's volunteers. Oh, how can I get involved? Because I have skills and things I want to get involved. So this is huge. And, I appreciate you all coming on a discussion and talk about this. And, JeRod and myself, I'm sure we'll definitely get some questions about, hey, I would definitely want to get involved. And I did share the link on the Facebook page. and we'll, once we get this recorded, established and things like that, we'll be sure to share this recording as well. But yes, this is huge, and we are really blessed to have Cincinnati Cares right here in our yard. And if you could, at the end of this, talk about the parent company as well. I think that would be a good kind of understanding of how Cincinnati Cares connected with the not only Cincinnati but the nation.
Perfect. And just kind of one final point. So if you get your auto schedule results and you see one and you're like, no, I like movies, but I don't really feel like the need to dig into that. Right. You can remove the organization and refresh the list, and then you're going to get a different suggestion. And so once you've kind of seen all those opportunities, you can accept all of them and go from there. So I'm going to stop the share unless there are any more questions.
No questions, just comments. This is a very sophisticated system. This is nice. This is very, very nice. I can appreciate this. I noticed when you were speaking, you mentioned a couple of things, but Board Bootcamp has been prevalent throughout. Could you or Curl kind of give us some details about what Board Bootcamp is? And also, again, because I'm thinking from a perspective of someone who's never served on the board, why would I benefit from Board Bootcamp, and what can I expect from you all?
Well, I've been talking a lot, but I will just hop in here because I'm one of the co-presenters. So I've got
this is her baby. Yeah.
With my education background, it's really been a pleasure to develop these trainings for the community. And so Board Bootcamp is about an hour, let's say 75-minute training that gives you the high level understandings of what you need to know as a board member. So what are the 6 main board responsibilities? What are your fiduciary responsibilities? And if that word is new to you, it was new to me too.
Yes.
Board members actually have a legal obligation. They hold the trust of the community on their shoulders. And so they have a legal obligation to steward these nonprofits financially and legally. And so what we go through that, we actually have Barka Patel, who is the Director of Education at Pro Bono Partners of Ohio. She's one of the speakers in the training.
I love Pro Bono.
Yeah, they're amazing, right?
Yes,
like
they
they're a huge asset to the community.
Yes, they are.
We have Chris Adams, who is the executive director of Stepping Stones, which is like this unbelievable nonprofit in our community. And he really gives a breakdown of like not only what a board member needs to do, but what does an executive director expect from a board member? So he brings some great insight. And we kind of bring in, what does it look like to be a board member? What are your obligations? And how do you find a great position for you?
Certainly.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
And Maurice, you want me to answer your question?
Yes.
So Cincinnati Cares is technically a program of inspiring service, and we have websites similar to Cincinnati Cares all over the country. We're up to about 2 different ones now, including the whole state of Massachusetts, the whole state of Nevada, and we're working on the whole state of Michigan right now. And I have
amazing.
Volunteers and interns help us create all of it. So that's been pretty wild in COVID. We have more volunteers than ever, actually. And we now have a pretty well, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but internship program. So we have 17 interns right now from 3 different schools helping us.
Wow.
So the idea is we want to make this guide available in as many communities as we can. And now that we have figured out how to do these board events virtually, we actually did one for the city of Boston in the fall because we're partners with the United Way of Boston. So now we can bring what we've created here in Cincinnati anywhere in the country, and we don't have to hop on a plane to go help one of our partners run a BoardConnect event anymore. So
Curl, with you being the chief volunteer officer, did I get that title right? Chief volunteer.
You sure did.
Well, it was hard. It was hard. I had to think twice. But with you doing that, and I'm hearing that you all have Michigan, or you're working on Michigan, Nevada, Massachusetts. So is that what Katie was alluding to when she said, or I'm not sure if it were you, who said now we have the ability to reach people in different spaces? And how are you spearheading that? What does that look like to even get to that point?
That seems massive.
It does. It almost intimidating, right?
it's about community partners. So, we ended up in Massachusetts because someone at the United Way of Boston fell in love with our platform. And the person that runs the Michigan Service Alliance is just phenomenal and has had our eye on this for quite a while and finally was able to make it happen so we can build it out for her. So COVID was a wake-up call for communities that they didn't have a really great way for the people in the community to easily find how to help. So that's why we've kind of grown like gangbusters during the pandemic, because communities raise their hand and say, well, we want what you have in Cincinnati. So the people in our community can more easily find a place to donate money, to donate items, or to even volunteer virtually, because that was a massive scramble back in March of last year when I would say 80% of all volunteering opportunities disappeared for how many months? And they're barely even creeping back. I mean, you still can't really usher anymore. Like the fine arts, the volunteering in fine arts is slim to none right now. So people wanted to do something, and the ability to add, like, I'm super excited about items needed now. We saw a lot of homemade masks needed in the beginning of COVID, which was very heartwarming.
Yes.
Get those people volunteering at home and bringing it in.
Yeah.
Oh.
It makes me extremely happy to hear that our city is doing something, or a business, an organization within our city is doing something that other regions and states want to mimic. So I'm really happy to hear about the work that you all are doing at Cincinnati Cares. I want to circle back to something that Katie mentioned earlier about how her and Maurice connected with my co-host, who is a trailblazer, without a doubt.
Here you go.
Mentioning that there are gaps within equality or within racial equality on boards. Katie, I reached out to you and I wanted to pause. I didn't want to answer behind closed doors, but I reached out to you and I noticed on the website that you all mentioned, right? You were intentional about mentioning we have Black nonprofit organizations. What was the thought process behind that? Why did you
Katie, feel free to share. Can you actually, I would love if you show us that again, show us the website and where you talk about those things. That would be great.
I would. Okay, great. So JeRod is referencing our guide, right? The way people can find their ways to help in the community. So I am going to share my screen. Actually, one second.
Yes, ma'am.
Let me I'll share my screen. I'm going to go to cincinnaticaresorg. And from here, you're going to see exactly how, if you want to find your way to help, not related to a board, this is where I would start. If you're looking to volunteer, if you're looking to give back, everyone needs to start at cincinnaticaresorg. We're absolutely the most comprehensive place in Cincinnati to find your way to help. And one of the reasons
you say that very humbly, so thank you.
Well, no, here's the thing. I think the reason why we're able to get in all of these markets is we understand we have to do the population. We expect nonprofits, once we've created this profile for them, to keep it up to date, right? But the differentiator is that lots of other websites are out there, but they're not going to do the work. So they're not going to be as comprehensive. You're not going to see 690 different ways you can search or 1,800 different ways you can help. So that's what I think is the reason why Carol was mentioning, people see what we're doing, they get excited about it. And we leverage volunteer power to make sure that all of the websites that we're developing across the country are as comprehensive as well. And so JeRod, what you were referencing is that we absolutely understand the importance of highlighting nonprofits that are fighting racism and injustice, and also that are Black founded nonprofits. And I very transparently, Carol might be able to speak to this a little bit better. I was out on maternity leave when this took place, but this was something that's, I think, very natural and inherent to what we want to be in the community.
Carol?
So this was kind of our reaction, and I have a dog trying to come in my room with me, by the way. If you hear her, we'll ignore her. This was our reaction to everything that was going on in June, and how can we help? And the kudos we've gotten from other communities about doing this has been amazing. So a lot of other communities that we're in have also wanted us to put this ribbon up here. So nonprofits who are Black founded can be highlighted.
I truly appreciate this because I was unaware, and I feel like I'm an informed citizen to some degree, that there were this many Black nonprofit organizations or Black founded nonprofit organizations. And I'm not, to Katie's point, I'm not sure where else I can go to find that information all in one space. So thank you for putting that out there, Cincinnati Cares. Thank you for that.
And got to give a special shout out to Rosemary's baby. Rosemary, if you're listening, we love you and the great work that you do. So I'm glad you highlighted Rosemary. She's really a trailblazer, and I've watched her
She's
just grow.
awesome.
Yeah, I've watched her grow so much over the years. And what I appreciate the most as well is like you keep the ribbon up, you keep it there. I haven't seen you say, okay, the time has passed, let's take it down. No, you're like, no, this is. To me, it looks like you're going to keep it parked there because you want people to come in and see, hey, look, Black founded nonprofits, consider the poor of Ohio. That is Sherman Bradley. We've had him on the discussion. Love Sherman Bradley and the great work he's doing with the Warehouse Church and the many ventures that he has going. So it's an amazing thing. And I appreciate, Gabriel's Place, right? Love Gabriel's Place. Right down the street from us. Black Achievers. I know we're doing some awesome work with them. So many Black founded nonprofits and people that really want to make a difference in that realm. I think this is where you go to find those nonprofits, because to JeRod's point, many of these I was not aware of. Ohio Justice and Policy Center, they do a lot of racial equity work. We got the Urban League, Eddie Cohen, we've had him on here. So it's amazing. It's just amazing. So thank you for that great work, and I say that very strongly. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Happy to do it. We were, like I said, we were definitely, we felt like that's what we could do in the midst of everything that's been going on.
Yeah, no, I wanted that. I have a quick question, a follow-up question, right? And this might not be, or you all might not be able to answer this, but do you all have a nonprofit that's near and dear to your heart? And can you kind of speak, and I know this may be a little bit personal, so if you can't share, that's fine, but can you kind of speak to why that nonprofit means a bit much to you? I'm
happy to jump in with a dear friend, the Literacy Network of Greater Cincinnati. As you might have seen on my BoardConnect profile, literacy, I think, is just personally like the most important gift that you can give to anyone, but particularly to a child. And the Literacy Network does just incredible work, everything from helping tutor adults who are struggling with literacy to connecting hundreds, when students were in school with volunteers, hundreds of volunteers throughout the community. They would train them and place them. And the way that I have been able to volunteer for them remotely, I have a little free library, and I'm a little free library steward. And so they, it's this adorable little blue box in it, like right next to our driveway. Nice. And they supply the books. And I have to tell you, we have everyone, from neighborhood kids who every day they have their little walk to the library, to construction workers who are helping out in the neighborhood and they're grabbing something for their kids. It is actually kind of a nice pandemic way to access books in a way that you don't have to go into a building. So not only are they just amazing with their mission, they've kind of been all in on Cincinnati Cares. And they recently certified as a service enterprise, which is a training that we offer to nonprofits, where nonprofits that are service enterprises generally have about half the median budget of peer nonprofits, but can still deliver that same mission. And they do that by leveraging volunteers. And so not only do I just love them personally, but I really respect their commitment to the volunteer space and how they envision increasing their impact by harnessing volunteer power.
So, Carol?
Okay, I have too many to mention because I fall in love not only with the missions, but also the executive directors or the volunteer coordinators. But I will share a fun story from several years ago. So when I first kind of got into this role of being almost like a point person for nonprofits is a big part of my role too. Back in a past job, I fell in love with Dress for Success, and I was totally blown away that these women sometimes show up for their fittings and they don't have proper undergarments. So I quickly became dubbed the bra fairy because I would buy bras on clearance and drop them off. Because I feel like that's something that I can help with that other people may not know. So, but yeah, there's just too many great nonprofits and too many wonderful people running them to pick a favorite.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Carl. I'm sorry for interrupting. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and now like is my life changes because we're empty nesters now. My passions changes. I'm totally in love with Keep Cincinnati Beautiful. Yep. I'm totally in love. I did 6 years at a food pantry, so now anything that touches poverty kind of pulls at my heartstrings. Yeah. So, yeah.
Certainly.
Too many to mention.
No, that's it's interesting because you mentioned the food pantry, and prior to during our preview, we were just talking about how all of a sudden Saturdays at the Roundtree house is a chef special, so to speak. So I can understand the food pantry being important.
Yeah.
I want to circle back to the literacy because that actually it speaks to me, right? With us now doing virtual schooling, one of my biggest concerns, and I have a passion for children as well, is the lack of support, right? That kids will receive now all of a sudden because they're not in school or they're not with their teachers, right? So I'm really concerned about that gap that we may see widen with schools, right? Katie, with what we're doing with literacy, I'm interested. I wanted to follow up. You said you have a free library. Where can I get that? Where is that accessible at? I need one.
So if you need a little free library, I will give you Michelle Gunther's, the executive director's email. And the biggest requirement they said is they want to put them in places, and this was free to me, free to the community. They want to put them in places that don't have them. So if there are like 3 little free libraries on your block, maybe not. But if there isn't one, reach out because they are trying to get books. And the great thing is through Volunteer Power, they process thousands of donated books. So as long as you have that little free library, you're going to get books to replenish it, which is absolutely wonderful. And I think it's interesting that you brought up a concern for students who, are not getting a traditional education opportunity, because that is something, again, very close to not just my heart, but to our organization. And what we were able to do at the beginning of the pandemic was to kind of pivot and take our deep technology expertise and create a new offering for the community. And so we developed something called Study Hall. And Study Hall is a virtual meeting space. It's a place for students to get free tutoring help. And really, again, speaking of closing the gap, the average tutoring experience is like, it can be up to $1 a minute or $10+ a question that you have. And we know, there are some families out there who can throw as much money as possible at a problem, but there are some families who just don't have that.
Right.
And that is not fair. And so what we wanted to do was to harnessing that volunteer power. We partnered with agencies like the Literacy Network. We're taking their volunteers, having them staff this free opportunity for Cincinnati public school students. And while we're still kind of in that beta phase where we're kind of working out the kinks and everything, we've already actually launched this technology in Boston, and we've got lots of communities around the country because this is such a strong need. So again, we've developed this virtual meeting place. It's really cool. It's called a shared whiteboard. So a kid could put up their homework and the tutor can see it and like write on it. And we don't have video just kind of for security reasons.
Of course.
But
Absolutely.
you can talk and you can text each other. And I think it just goes to show that, at Cincinnati Cares and at our parent organization, Inspiring Service, we really do try to look at problems through the lens of technology and people, because it's not just technology, right? You need the people behind it to make the difference. But how do we leverage technology tools to make things easier for people?
Certainly. No, that's powerful. That's powerful. That's very powerful. And I thank you for that. And JeRod, if you don't mind, I actually got 2 things. Number one, can you tell us about Help Connect? And then secondly, after that, it's going a whole nother lane. I want to talk about volunteerism, Black volunteerism, because there's a question that some nonprofits, some organizations ask about the engagement of Black volunteers, and then kind of what, Katie, I know we had a conversation about it. What's the reason that it may be seeming that we don't, that organizations aren't able to get Black volunteers. So
Carol, do you want to talk about Help Connect?
please, Carol.
Absolutely. So it's been a passion of our founder for a long time to figure out how to connect skilled volunteers with nonprofits needing skills. And in the pandemic, some amazingly powerful research came out saying that all nonprofits need right now, every nonprofit needs, is scenario planning help. So we decided to try a pilot. We're in our second one now, of matching teams of 3 to 5 volunteers with a nonprofit. And the whole goal is to give them a scenario plan. So then they have a roadmap of what to do no matter what the outcome. An example, one of the nonprofits has a grant covering Wi-Fi, and they provide Wi-Fi in the community. Their team came up with different scenarios on what would happen if the Wi-Fi grant didn't get renewed, and how this nonprofit could go about seeking other forms of grant money and so forth to make a pivot. So kind of the joke is they're making a plan that you put on the shelf until you need it, but then when you need it, it's there waiting for you. And I'm blown away by the reaction of our first group that did it. The volunteers all loved it because they felt like they were truly helping. They were getting to know other like-minded people. I know one group, they can't wait till they can all go out for a beer because they had so much fun meeting virtually. They want to meet in person. And every executive director was just blown away by having not only this awesome scenario plan, but also having people that really care take a fresh look, like fresh eyes on their nonprofit, because it's so easy in the nonprofit world to get in your own little tunnel and have tunnel vision about what you're doing and your mission. So to have like-minded professional people take a fresh look at it was just amazing.
That's amazing. If I'm not mistaken, I think so I'm on the Recovery Center for Hamilton County Board. I believe they participate in Help Connect. So
They did.
Yes, Chris Fedotto, he's been great, and we've definitely had conversations about that in our board meeting. So thank you for that.
So you know all about it.
Of course I do. Of course I do. Of course I do. And thank you for that. Thank you for that. And I would encourage any executive director who needs help with scenario planning, definitely reach out to Cincinnati Cares, because we have so many resources, and to be honest with you, a lot of the people aren't aware of. And I think this is a reason why we offer this discussion. I mean, JeRod, we offer it to provide that. And maybe some of our smaller Black-led nonprofits, maybe they're like, wow, this is a great opportunity to get involved, to look at our scenarios and see how we can continue to be sustainable in the future. So thank you for sharing that. And my second question, Katie, and Carol, please feel free to chime in, but can you talk a little bit about our discussion, Katie, about Black volunteerism?
Well, first of all, I want to just make sure I'm very careful about how we define volunteerism.
Of course.
Because there's traditional, you go to a nonprofit and you do something and, hey, I volunteered, which is amazing and actually is absolutely what fuels the nonprofits making big impacts in our community. But volunteering is giving of your time freely to help someone else.
Exactly.
And so I want to be very careful when I'm talking about, who is volunteering, to say, if you are shoveling your neighbor's sidewalk, you're volunteering.
Exactly. That's
you
a great
might not
point.
be getting hours. You might not have a nonprofit saying, we have this volunteer, but you were volunteering. If you are making a meal for a mom who just had a kid or someone who just broke their ankle, you're volunteering.
Yes, you are.
And if you're helping out with your church, you're volunteering. If you're helping out with your sorority or fraternity, you're volunteering. And you might be making an impact that, nonprofits aren't seeing and tallying and saying, we've had these people volunteer, and my dog is volunteering her bark to defend our house.
There you go. Right, exactly.
But I always want to be very careful when we say, who is and who isn't volunteering, that there's a lot of untallied volunteering and support that's happening in our community. And there might be people who have, some barriers to the traditional, maybe they don't have the flexibility in their work, or they've already made commitments to places like their church or their sorority and their fraternity. And because of that, they're kind of at capacity. So I just want to make sure that when we're considering how we conceptualize volunteers in our community. You know, we might have a traditional white image. Oh, this is the volunteer, it's a white lady. But there's so many people. Like just like a very small example, a very personal example, is at Third Presbyterian Church, which is in East Westwood. I, developed my passion for tutoring there as a high schooler, and I'm forever grateful for that opportunity. But there are some women, and I'm specifically Mr. Rodney, who give so much of their time, and they're very unsung heroes, and they're doing the work, and they're showing up day after day and week after week. And I just want to make sure that we celebrate them, even though, it might not be in a traditional nonprofit form.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
That's and I appreciate you sharing that, because I never looked at it like that, right? I always looked at it from the perspective of, if you're just doing a favor, right? You're doing a favor for someone if you're shoveling your neighbor's yard, or you're taking out their trash and whatnot. So I really do appreciate you putting things into that perspective.
Yeah.
Sounds like you and Mo have some really good conversations.
Yeah. And thank you, Katie. That was great. And one of the things I was wanting to tap into was, there's often, I won't say oftentimes, there's times where organizations may look at their volunteerism, right, and say, we don't have any Black volunteers, right? Why?
Mhm.
And they say, well, they may surmise and say something like Black people don't want to volunteer, and I don't think that's the case.
Mm-mm.
What the
No.
case is, what it is oftentimes, did you ask them? Did you ask them?
But so,
And guess what? Then it comes back and they're like, no, we didn't.
And to that point, Mo, right? It's almost like, how do you reach them, right? Where do you are? Is that something that you're looking to do? Because maybe there is this preconceived notion that they don't want to volunteer, so we won't reach out to them. So I'm just super excited that Cincinnati Cares has people such as Carol, such as Katie, such as Doug, right, that are actually caring about putting together a platform that it can mesh, right? People from different backgrounds and different ethnicities, to where it's more so about the work than the color, man. And I'm super excited that you are at Mo, right, are having these type of conversations with people to bring these things to the forefront.
Well, thank you. And just kind of jumping off of that, like one of the things that Maurice and I talk about is like with board service, when you're in this leadership capacity and in this governance capacity, when someone says, oh, who else would be good? Who do you think of? You think of your friends, your family, your colleagues. And this might not be like a easy thing to say, but in Cincinnati, that often is someone of the same race.
Yep.
In DC, it was like a totally different culture. But in Cincinnati, I think we do just have a degree of social segregation.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you have a predominantly white board and you ask them, well, who do you know? I mean, that's like, isn't that like the go-to question?
That's it. Yeah. Yep.
And so let's go ahead, Carl. I'm sorry. What were you saying?
Oh no, I was just agreeing. Having worked for a number of nonprofits and knowing that's exactly what was happening. Every new board member was a friend of somebody else on the board.
And so, and that's amazing, right? Because I think we're coming, and I'm hoping that we're coming into a space as a city with Cincinnati, as we continue to grow, that we aren't as segregated, right? That we are willing to mesh ethnicities with race and things of that nature. Because it's funny, I'm with the Cincy Next, right? And there's it's majority white, right? But there are a few Black, and we get together after our events and whatnot, and we have a blast. But it's not like we connect the way I would like to connect, where we bring our friends and you bring your friends, and it's that type of deal where we're intentional about connecting. And I think that's something that we as a city could be better at. The participants, the citizens of the city could be better at, so we can kind of blend our backgrounds a little bit more.
I agree.
So,
Totally.
I think it just takes a little bit of I wonder to what degree it is a Midwestern thing where like we do not handle awkward very well. And so like having these conversations, it is awkward, right?
Yeah.
Talking about this is awkward. But if you push past that, you have this opportunity. Like think about all of the friends you might have out there that you're just missing because you're not willing to have an awkward conversation. And it's not even like you're not willing, but it's just, we don't really think about it.
Yeah.
So I think it's wonderful, JeRod, what you're saying about like, this is something you want to work towards. And I hope that, when you think about board service, you're willing to have that conversation and say, who isn't at our table? Look at your team.
Yep.
If this is a football team, are we missing a linebacker? Like what are we missing? And make sure that when you're recruiting, you think about that and and you can also name race and say, we want to have someone representative from the community, and we don't have that. And also probably we want more than one person of that race so that everyone can feel comfortable in sharing their opinions.
Certainly. And then that's a great point. And as you can see with the discussion, I mean, obviously myself and JeRod, we're black males, but we strive ourselves on bringing many different people in to give perspectives and things, bringing you two in, bringing, many different people in from many different backgrounds so that we can have a wholesome discussion on whatever topic that we bring in. So I just want to thank you all for taking the time to join us on the discussion this evening. Our time is up.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, always.
So fun.
Thank you,
so
Carol.
fun to have these conversations.
Yes, and thank you for the coming on last minute. I know Doug had a conflict and couldn't make it, and we have had Doug on the discussion before, so it's great to have you come on and kind of help us conceptualize and understand Cincinnati Cares, BoardConnect, Help Connect, and many different programs you guys offer. So this is great. Any final quick things you want to say before we end this evening, Carol?
If you're even thinking about board service, create a profile on boards.cincinnaticaresorg and take that first step and sign up for our board boot camp. In 1 hour, you can figure out if you're ready to take that plunge. Is, I think, one of the best things about that. If you're not sure, you get a little bit of a nugget so you can make that decision, because it's not a short-term commitment. It's usually a minimum of a 3-year commitment for a board role. So, yeah.
Katie?
I would say that your voice matters and that your leadership matters, and that if you are ready to step up in your career, in your networking, and in your friend network, really consider a board position, because it's a great way. And if you, like Carol said, if you have any questions and you're curious, Board Bootcamp is a great place to start. But I also just want to say thank you so much to Maurice and JeRod for this opportunity to connect with you and to connect with your audience. And if there's anyone in the audience who would like to speak further, my email is katie@cincinnaticares.org. Carol is carol@cincinnaticares.org. And we really do want to hear from you and we want to help you. So please do not hesitate to reach out.
Great. Brother JeRod, anything else for us, buddy?
March 11th, Katie has provided us with the link. March 11th, there is the BoardConnect, for lack of to conceptualize it for you all, speed dating event. So you can find out what board is suitable for you and what board you are suitable for. March 11th, folks, let's make sure that we are there for that. I think I might join myself. So,
well, and the great thing is there's no commitment yet for that. But again, it gives you an opportunity to learn what executive directors are looking for, to see if you feel compelled. You know what? I think sometimes it's a calling, like you're just connected with that executive director and that mission and you want to do it. So it gives you that opportunity to see to try it on, actually. See if you want to take a deeper plunge.
Great. And then I wanted to mention this as well. So the next board boot camp, the discussion, we're going to pay for 10 people to attend board boot camp. So if you're watching and you're interested, a date is coming up. We're going to pay for 10 people to attend board boot camp hosted by Cincinnati Cares. So
it's amazing.
We're excited. We'll make that happen. We're going to make that happen because we definitely want to get folks involved in board service to help make Cincinnati a bigger and better Cincinnati. So that's great. JeRod, anything else?
Girl, Katie, thank you so much for joining us. People, joining the board will help you professionally. It will help you increase your earning potential. It will help you increase your network. There's just so many benefits to joining a board or even volunteering, right? So definitely think about doing that.
Great point.
Captain Mo.
Hey, thank you all. We're going to be out for a couple of weeks, but we will be back. We got some great stuff in the pipeline. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Cincinnati Cares. Thank you all for joining us. Have a great evening. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you guys for doing what you're doing. I love it.
And enjoy the weather.
Thank
It's
you,
like we're
Carol.
getting some better weather, so that's good. Thank you all.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.